Elden Ring is a ARPG developed by FromSoft and was published by Bandai Namco, which I hate that company to be honest, but I guess it kind of is what it is, right? This game is collaborated with George R. R. Martin, and you can play this game essentially everywhere in the world, but I imagine the best place to play this game would be on the PC. Um, this game essentially, what they tell you at the start is there's runes everywhere, and your goal is to become a Elden Lord. Which, if you are someone that has played every FromSoft game ever, essentially, you know that that's essentially what the synopsis is of every game that they make, is to become like, you know, the best, the king, the whatever, the Ashen fucking warrior, whatever. The thing kind of goes on, right? But anyways, gonna talk about the game a little bit. I finished my first playthrough recently, and I put about 102 hours into the game. This is not 100%ing it. I maybe 85% of the game. On Steam, there is about 35 achievements for bosses alone, but that is excluding numerous dungeon bosses and like there's like just so much content in the game that it's kind of crazy that there's only 40 achievements. Like, it kind of baffles me, honestly. But we'll go ahead and talk about some of the features that we have going on here. When you sit at your bonfire, which is what I call it, you have a few options that you don't have in every other game that they've ever made. Like, you can pass time, first of all, so I'm going to go ahead and do that so the video quality looks better and not shitty because of the darkness and the shadows and all that shit. You have your normal level up. You can, of course, allocate your flask, spells. You get this thing. I don't know if they're in any of the other games. Maybe Sekiro. I forget. Wondrous Psychic. This might be just a Elden Ring thing too. But essentially, you can have like an extra jar that can, of course, heal you halfway if you want to. But there's a bunch of other things that it does, and you get these from killing the Erd Tree mini bosses, I believe, around the world. But you can get a lot of these. There's like fucking 25 plus of them, I believe. There's Great Runes, which is essentially, I would consider it kind of like a covenant, except for it does a lot more than a covenant. It actually gives you something. There's about 5 or 6 of these in the game, I believe. There might be more, I don't know, but I'm pretty confident in that. And they have Ashes of War too, which is something you can add to your weapon to get an additional attack essentially, but I don't mess with this because it looks like it just lowers your physical attack. So I've never used it on anything. What is there? So here's the map. I'm on my alt account, so there's not everything, but I'm missing stuff. But like right here, for example, Tombs Ward Catacombs. This is a dungeon. In general, the dungeons are pretty good, I would say. I don't really have an issue with them. I guess I do have one issue, and that is that they do repeat a lot of the bosses that are in these dungeons a lot. Like, there's the cat boss, the cat stone boss that you see 4 or 5 times in the game. There's a boss, Godric, that you fight in the Evergal again, which is these Evergals. This is solo bosses. You cannot summon anyone for them. I consider them benchmark tests, see if your damage is doing good or whatever. And there's also the ruins. These usually have like usually there might be a couple of them that don't, unless I've missed them, right? But they have like an item somewhere hidden in them that might be worth value, or a little, not even a mini boss, but like just a big enemy essentially that will, give you a decent amount of souls. And the churches. These are churches that have sacred teals, I think what they're called, or tiers. It levels up how much you get healed on your flask, but these are all over the world, right? So you can kind of just go everywhere. This is the map that I have so far on my alt. The map in the game is huge. It's way bigger than this. Like, it goes way the fuck up. Like, I've explored maybe not even barely 50% of the map, honestly. What are some things I can talk about here? The route that I did on my first playthrough is you start here, essentially, the first step. I went up and killed, what's Margit? Yeah, I killed Margit, and then I went and did Godric. After that, I went into Khalid for a little bit, but then I realized I was too underleveled, and I went down to the Morin Mongrave. And after that is when I started exploring the game because I felt too weak to actually destroy the boss. Like, it took me a long time, and I just wasn't really getting anywhere. So I went on a hunt and just went for a bunch of dungeons and gals, and I helped a lot of players at Margit, wherever the fuck that's at. Yeah, Margit. I helped a lot of players beat this boss, and that's how I farmed my souls up pretty high at early game. I was level 50 around at this point, but I still felt like I wasn't really getting anywhere. So something you really need to do, and do I have it easily available on here? I might not. It's this one right here, I think. If it's not, then I'm just wasting time. Okay, I think this is it. My biggest issue in the game that I had early game was I just wasn't leveling up my weapon, and it's because I didn't know where to get the proper materials. Um, like example, my short spear is level 1 right now, and I'm like level 50, 60 or some shit. It's not even level 1, it's just level 0. And it's because I don't know what the fuck to really use, and it's not the game's fault or anything like that. I'm having a good time playing the game and all that stuff. And I don't think I can unfortunately show the equipment because I don't have a lot of equipment. But what I noticed, and another thing that I really don't care for about the game, is that there's a decent amount of gear in the game, but the gear, it just like, it doesn't really expand outwards. The gear just looks like gear from a bunch of the other games, and there's not really anything super new or interesting that really interests me. It just looks like your typical Dark Souls character, and I would say that the gear in the game is undoubtedly probably one of my more disappointed things, and that's why I can easily say it's not a masterpiece alone off that. But it's not, I mean, that's just one thing, right? One thing is very minimal and very trivial, I guess. The weapons in the game, I don't have a lot of weapons on this character, but the weapons are okay, I guess. I only used on my first playthrough 2 weapons, and that was it. I used the Uchigatana, and then I used a some random 2-handed sword for a little while, but it was so slow that I just went back to the katana. The weapons are okay too. They do give me more of a Dark Souls vibe, and I don't know. Maybe I'm complaining about it, even though it's not a big issue. It's just an issue for me because like it kind of takes out of the originality of it. But the whole game, if you pay attention to every single mob and every single building that you visit, this game is essentially just like it's like every game they've ever made, the shit that they couldn't fit into the game because it didn't either look good or it just didn't make sense or they just didn't want to. It feels like it was added into this game, and I don't have an issue with that. I think that for the most part, all the enemies were really fun. There's some fights where I feel like you're obligated to put summons down because or get people to help you, because there is a lot of unfair bosses. There is many bosses where you're going 2-on-1, 3-on-1, and you're under leveled generally at the very start of the game because you don't have all these items, and it's just a new game in general. So it kind of catches you off guard, and as someone that loves to play these games solo, this is the first time I really felt like I really just like I needed to summon. Like I didn't really have a choice. I did make a it's not called a wizard. I made an int build essentially where you can use magic, and I do notice the game is a lot more easier when you use magic. You do need to actually pay attention to your dodging, I guess. That is one thing. But I just noticed that compared to my first playthrough, on my first playthrough, like for Margit, I probably spent 3 or 4 hours on the boss. My biggest issue wasn't the boss himself, but the rolling. The rolling in this game to me is very difficult, and it's because you have to kind of time it accordingly. I did kind of learn how to do it better, but I don't think I'm the best at it. But that's probably what held me back for the longest time was the rolling. And also not leveling up vigor. On my first playthrough, I got my strength to 45, I got my dexterity to 35, and my vigor was at 20. So I was still getting a one shot by everything, and it's kind of unfortunate that I have to say this, but unless you're just a god at dodging and you're never getting hit, which these bosses have fucking massive health bars, so you're gonna most likely get hit because it's an endurance battle. Your memory kind of has to stay on point with everything that's going on. It's really hard. It really is hard, honestly, as a melee player to get through some of these things. That's a very okay. Yeah. What else can I say? The horse riding on this game is okay. I don't really have an issue with it. Is it better than like Ghost of Tsushima's horse riding? I don't know because they nailed that pretty fucking hard. But I don't really have an issue with it. I rarely use the horse except for when I was just traveling to like far distant places. That's very clearly a hand. The combat on the horse is very generic and bland to me. You just fucking stab them with your sword or whatever you have, and that's it. There's not really any combo dealing or anything like that. It might vary on the weapon, which, to be fair, I haven't really experimented with. The course, there's a big hand thing behind me. And I can't kill any of these things because I'm under leveled, so I'm just going to ignore them. But for the most part, all the bosses I fought were at the level I was at. It was okay, moderately difficult, but not like super difficult. There was only 2 to 5 bosses that I was really struggling with, and I was like begging for mercy and all that shit. I was like, oh dear God, please fucking spare me. Or like, there's bosses I spent like 50 plus attempts on because like it's just hard to do some of the stuff in this game. There's some really hard bosses. This game doesn't really give you a general location on where to go. Like, they have these little yellow signs that tell you where to go, but the issue is that when you rely on those, because you start off over here, you start off at the first step, it tells you to go straight, you go straight, so you go straight, you get here, you get to this shack, and then the first thing you know, you're already at Margit at level, like, probably less than level 20. I think it's bad design. It gives you the idea where to go, but like what I'm specifically getting at, because I'm kind of going off track here, is that there should have really been like a journal or a quest log to specify what you need to do with certain NPCs, because there's a lot of NPCs in the game. There's a lot of quest lines in the game, and on my first playthrough, I probably picked up like 15 different NPC quests or some shit before even finishing one of them. Like I just literally like I didn't know what the fuck to do, and of course no one really does because it's the start of the game. But I literally did like most of the quests at the end of the game after I beat everything except for the last boss, and I was like, all right, I'll just quickly go do all these things so I can get them out of the way or whatever, and that's what I did. And I was so overpowered for it, like over leveled, that I just like it wasn't really that fun, honestly, doing them. Like it was more just watching a YouTube video and figuring out how to do it because like there's not really a whole lot of guidance in this game for like all that kind of stuff. If I was to make a suggestion on where to go when you're first starting this game, is go to the church and go to Gatefront. Make sure you get that. If you want to do multiplayer, go to Aghill Lake North and farm the flowers right here in this area where the sword grave is. You can do that for 5 minutes and you'll be perfectly fine. These little holes on the map right here, those are dungeons. They don't show you where all the dungeons are in this game, but there are quite a few of them. Just like the way you find things is by looking for certain buildings in the game. Like, okay, there might be something there, or there might be something there. There could be something there, and so on and so forth. There is no ship riding as far as I really know. I never got on a ship or anything like that. So you're not going out to sea really. You can get to some of these islands like this one right here, for example, by getting teleports or whatever. But that's really it. But if I was to recommend a way for you to go, like I was saying earlier, after you get to Gatefront, I'd actually just go down to the east and start going down to this area. This area was a very easy area for me at the early game, and I actually didn't have any issues really beating him the second time on my playthrough, and it's because I'm using an incantation build. But I just really didn't have that much issues, honestly. And on the first day that I played on my alt, I beat Margit, Godric, and this boss on the first day, unlike on my first character. The visuals in this game are phenomenal. Like they just did the graphics really, really well, and I'm not showing you a really good place, so maybe I should try to find a good place, right? Let's go up to the Divine Tower of Limgrave. Should be a decent view up here. I mean, it's like a fucking tall tower, so I really hope so. There you go. This game has a lot of beautiful areas in it, and when you think that you've gotten through most of the game, I promise you haven't. This game is massive. It is huge. It is huge jazz, and it's a fun. That's how you have to go to eventually too. And it's just everything I really wanted in a Dark Souls game. It blew my expectations out of the water, even though like I had really, really high expectations because there was a game that came out recently. It wasn't Cyberpunk, it was something else, but it literally just shit the bed, and I was like, oh no, I'm so doomed, I'm fucked. Like, this game is gonna suck. I'm gonna have to get Kuno on the fucking OS RS because it's fucking dog shit. But no, I can't say that. I can't say that at all because the game isn't bad. It has literally things from every Dark Souls game. It has stuff from Bloodborne. It has stuff from Sekiro. And to top it off, it just has an open world that you can endlessly explore. And the story, from what I have understood of it, I'm really intrigued by the story. It's just there's so much that I don't know how I would ever find it. You would think that they would write a book about it or some shit, and maybe there is a book for it. I just don't know about it. But in general, everything about this game is phenomenal. Uh, the customization for your character is really nice too, which is something you need for a third-person game. I see a lot of developers nowadays going hard on the fucking character creation shit when it's a first-person shooter. I'm like, well, you can't even see your fucking character. Are you fucking retarded? And I really don't get it. And then they have the audacity to sell like skins in first person. I'm like, what? Skins? First person? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But anyways, I have a hard time deciding where this game is at in my favorites. It is a top 5 game of mine for sure. Um, it's everything I really wanted and more. And I'm really sad because I know that when I finish playing this game for a third time, I'm going to be really sad because there's not a game really like this. FromSoft doesn't have a game that fucking comes close, and I'm scared to play Dark Souls 3 and it's super linear and fucking like crappy game, honestly. Like, I'm afraid to play it. I think that Dark Souls 3 will be shit when I play it again, and hopefully that's not the case. And I think that's going to be the case for Bloodborne 2 and like fucking Dark Souls 2 and I mean, Dark Souls 1 was kind of okay with its progression and where you went. You had options, but it wasn't open world like this, though. You still had a general direction you had to go into. But I really don't think that they can ever make a game like not open world anymore. I think people will just be like, okay, this is kind of just boring, and people will figure it out really fast. But this, dude, this is everything that everyone could really want, and the hype was real, dude. The hype is real. Most of the reviews I've seen from people that probably got paid to give reviews gave it a 10 out of 10, and like what can I really say about it? If you take your time and you explore this game through and through, you're going to spend easily over 60 hours on this game. It has as much content as, I don't know about The Witcher, but it has a shit ton of content. Um, the only thing I'm having a difficult time with is telling if it's a better game than fucking The Wind Waker. That's my favorite game of all times, and I really don't know. I'm sitting here struggling trying to figure it out. But I can easily say it's better than any game they've ever made, including one of my favorite games of all time, Bloodborne 2. Not Bloodborne 2, Bloodborne also, I guess, to make it easier to tell the difference in that. Um, I loved Bloodborne a whole lot because of I guess, the Lovecrafty into it, honestly. And even though this game has almost whatsoever, there are areas in the game that just remind me of Bloodborne. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, like I said, it kind of just has a little bit of everything in it. Um, Overall, in difficulty terms, I'd say it's the second hardest game, with the exclusion of if you're a magic user. If you're a magic user, just carry on. You're gonna do fine. This game will be a cakewalk for you. Have fun laughing at the bosses while you just shoot a laser and go brrr, fucking for the whole fight, like, whatever, right? But I would say this is probably the second hardest game they've made, behind maybe Sekiro. And the reason why Sekiro is more difficult is just solely because of the backwardness of the game. Like, instead of spamming R1, you're spamming L1. And it's just something different that they don't do in all these games. You don't spam L1 in this game. You can dual wield weapons and you can occasionally hit the L1 or whatever. But it's just a completely different game. But that doesn't mean that the combat in this game is worse than in Sekiro, and I think the combat in this game was done pretty flawlessly. From people that do use dual wielding, I hear they're having a great time playing this game, and it's apparently very homage to Dark Souls 2, that's the only Dark Souls game I never played. I don't have the balls to play that game, essentially, so I won't play that game. It looks like hot garbage, no offense. And yeah, this game is literally like a 9.7 out of 10. It just did a very sludge minimum thing wrong, and it was like just I don't know. Maybe it's not even something that's wrong. It's just like something that they can't really help because it's what they're known to do. That's what they've been doing for years. So I guess I'll just kind of leave it at that. This is as close to a masterpiece as you can really get. And if you listen to this whole thing, I'm sorry, because I'm not really talking in chapters. I'm kind of just talking about random things, and I'm not really showing the world or anything like that. I'm trying to make it as spoiler-free as possible. I don't think I really said anything super spoilish in this game, or in this review, so that's good. But to my understanding, to end this off, this game doesn't have any DLC being planned for it at the moment. Subject to change. The next game they're going to make, I wish, would be Dark Souls 4, low-key. They're not going to. But Elden Ring 2 is a possibility. It might take 8 years for it to come out. We might be adults with children whenever Elden Ring 2 comes out. But that's about it. That's about really all I got. I enjoyed the hell out of this game. It's a great game. I recommend everyone play it if you enjoy difficult games. This game is not easy when you first start off, but unless you're a magic user. If you're a magic user, just fucking shoot your laser and go burr. But aside from that, this game will challenge you. If you want to play it strictly melee, go have fun. Go die 1,000 times and hate yourself. But that's about it. I'll be playing this game 2 more times after this review. I'm halfway through my second, not half, I'm maybe a quarter way through my second playthrough. So there's that. But yeah, I'm probably going to spend the next 2 months on this game still. I'm not leaving this game. It's such a good game, and like the next game I might play after this will probably be Gran Turismo 7. And that is still going to be a ways down the road because I'm not buying it at $70 fucking dollars. They could kiss my ass. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and peace.